go back to the beginning of this later and be like, spoilers?
Hold on. If you're watching this and you're not wanting a spoiler, why? Hey everyone, welcome to StormCrows TV. Shit. Hey everyone, welcome to StormCrows TV, the channel where two lit chicks discuss anything reading, writing, or in this case, visual. I'm Emily Sloan.
I'm Allegra Gray.
And today we're going to be discussing this sleeper hit that you probably haven't heard of called Bridgerton. Yeah, that was irony. I promise everyone's heard of it.
I think the entirety of Twitter's been screaming about Bridgerton for one reason or another for the last few days, but, you know.
Now, in our last video, I said I wasn't sure if I was even going to bother with it. My lovely co-writer and co-host told me that for many reasons it was worth the watch. I didn't hate it as much as I thought, but I didn't love it. So I guess we'll just dive right into, you know, what is Bridgerton? Because you would think it's Jane Austen, but it's not Jane Austen.
It's Jane Austen via 1,000,001 Harlequin Regencies through Shonda Rhimes. Like, I love the Regency period, but like Regency romances just are not my thing. Probably for reasons that may or may not become apparent as we discuss the Bridgerton, which I actually really did like for the most part. I'm actually more interested in season 2 than I am in season 1, though, for reasons that will also become rapidly apparent.
I would be disingenuous if I were to say I don't enjoy Regency romance, considering I think our very first video I gushed on and on about Joanna Lindsay. After watching the show and recognizing a lot of the format, or rather formula and tropes, I look back on my love of Joanna Lindsay and wondered if maybe that had much to do with my age. I don't know that if I were to pick it up today, I'd love it as much as I did, just based on the reintroduction of wandering back into Regency romance. It's a sad realization, but I mean, I used to also love Go Dog Go, but here we are.
There are a lot of good things. I guess we have to address the casting, but honestly, like, the cast was awesome.
Yes.
And frankly, I don't feel the need to discuss it beyond all of these actors did an amazing job. I don't feel like we should have to discuss it much other than say good job for making a, you know, multiracial, more like a better world. I think I described this to someone on Facebook one time as like, I play in the SA sometimes, which is the Society for Creative Anachronism if you're in historical stuff. And a lot of times we pitch that as history as it should have been. So I kind of explain this on Facebook as being history as it should have been, as it could have been, like a better version, the nicer version. I love Hastings. I love the character. I actually really liked him. Like, a lot of the reason I never liked Regency romances even as a teenager, was the few that I picked up had raging dicks as the main love interest. He would have some tragic backstory, but now he's just an utter asshole, constantly 24/7. And he treats the main heroine like crap until like love or orgasms happen, and then he'll like perform in the last 10 pages.
Basically the older brother.
Actually, the older brother is still nicer because he was actually
going on. So I would say older brother episode 1.
I think when I rewatched it, it really became apparent to me. The actor managed to convey that he's being a dick, but he's kind of just overcompensating himself into dickdom. Didn't mean to become a dick face, but he's gotten there.
And a lot of the Regencies I read as a teenager sneaking these books out of my mother's room, they were really beyond alpha male. As you said, raging assholes. There's really no way around it. It's their whole character. Because it's one thing to sometimes be an asshole, but have redeemable traits. And a lot of Regency romance, especially like the 80s and 90s, and we've talked about the problematic tropes of the 80 and 90 romance novels, but it was like all they were. There was nothing redeemable about them except sometimes they had huge dicks. That's not enough to fall. I mean, maybe for someone that's enough to fall in love with, but you need more, not dick.
I think I remember Romancelandia type accounts, people calling them alpha holes, and I think that pretty much fit.
Perfect. Yeah, I liked Hastings more than I probably should have. There was many times he'd come on the screen and he would speak, and there would just be a shudder that would run through me. He has a good voice, very good voice, intense eyes.
And I really like the character. It gave him a solid backstory of why he's super, super regarded. Honestly, I wish we'd gotten more of like the adventures of Hastings before meeting Daphne. It sounds like he's been having kind of the time of his life off doing whatever. Can we just have more of him being a rake for a while? Because then he meets Daphne and her bangs and her flat hair.
Dude, her bangs. I'm not gonna let, like, I saw your tweet not too long ago. Her bangs reminded me of bug antenna. Have you ever seen the tarantula hawk wasp? It has like the curly antenna, but it goes up on the. It reminded me of the tarantula hawk wasp.
I just wondered like who had broken up with her before the season even started, that she had, gone through the I'm gonna cut my hair and bangs today meltdown that girls have periodically.
Well, her sister had that too.
Eloise making poor fashion choices almost would seem deliberate as part of that character. I was so distracted by the very strange corseting choices and a lot of the fashion. Why is Daphne the only person in the entire time with flat hair? Was the wardrobe department trying to be like, she's not like other girls?
I think so, because in the Pride and Prejudice video, we talked about how clothing is characterization. I also didn't pay that much attention to the fashion because I knew you would. I'm sort of out of my depth with that, but the way I kind of took it was, I'm listening to Maroon 5 as an orchestral remix here.
No, the costumes are actually better than I expected, because I literally expected rain levels of costuming, and they actually made it look sort of Regency-esque. What actually made me really angry, though, was obviously they did some research on what Regency fashion was. They even had some pretty Regency-looking hair and all this stuff. No, they had that dumb scene with somebody, like, getting laced into a corset, and Lady Featherington is all like, when I was out, my waist was the size of an orange and a half thing. And I'm like, that's Victorian, guys. You were literally like over 100 years ahead of your time. And like Regency stays don't look like that. They don't lace like that. They're more like a very, actually pretty comfy sports bra. I really like some Regency stays that I've worn before. A lot of Bridgerton's coded Victorian as hell.
Yes.
The rules of conduct are not Regency. It's like Knickerbocker, New York is somehow cosplaying as a Regency ton. Y'all, this is the Regency. The Prince Regent is out and about. There are Regency house parties that were like pretty much just partner swap parties, let's be real. Regency is the reason you got the swing back to the Victorian uber morality.
Yeah, the overcorrection.
Queen Victoria has so much to answer for.
Especially since she was freaky in the sheets too.
She popped out like a million kids. She had to know something went on. It was really weird to me that Bridgerton felt so Victorian. Because if you're reading like Evelina or even the rules for Pamela, which we try not to name a lot, or in the Jane Austen novels, I've actually seen people discussing it in a lot of the Sanditon groups that I'm in and a few others, and they're like, well, why are they so freaked out about girls being by themselves for 30 seconds when there's all these Jane Austen heroines that do that all the time? And I'm like, that's because Bridgerton's not any kind of historical accurate, even a little bit. How are these girls in Regency England part of the Regency ton, around the Prince Regent set, around all of that, and they don't know how sex works?
Yeah, I found that to be incredibly annoying, which I think we'll touch on when we get more into Daphne, because I have words, but
so many words.
My mother looked over at me. The first time I was watching it was the second time she was watching it, and she looked over at me and she goes, is that accurate? Like, did they really not know? And I said, well, if they never left the house ever and their mother didn't talk to them ever about any of it, I can understand that. But you're not going to convince me that you have 3 older brothers who are considered rakes and you don't know even a little bit. I would think you would accidentally hear a conversation.
My older brothers are way older than me. We've actually never lived in the same house, and I've still walked in on awkward conversation.
I'm the baby of 5. I have accidentally walked in on conversations between my parents.
Talk about their parents banging all the time.
Right. You get this impression that her mother and her father very much loved each other. And what by impression, I mean they hit you over the head with it. So you're going to tell me that never once in your marriageable age, you never once asked, Mom, where do babies come from? Because I am expected to give babies, since my whole goal in life is get married, be a mother. Maybe tell me how that works.
Not even just mom, governesses, nurses. In the class life they would have been having, these girls would have been born to having nurses in the nursery, which graduates to governesses,
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there isn't actually apparently some sort of governess present actually leads me to believe that their mom is super bad at being a mom. You've also got like Daphne and Eloise having all of this education, obviously haven't been, barred from the library. Not one of them ever picked up Virgil or Shakespeare, any of the French poets, French in general.
I don't think you can get through a page of Shakespeare without running into sex.
Like, there's sex jokes all over the place. Much Ado About Nothing is damn right out there.
But even like the ones that they're always quoting in romance, like Romeo and Juliet, dude, there's sex everywhere in that.
It kills the characterization a little bit because you're sitting there like, Eloise has picked up smoking somehow because she's super into knowledge. She's obviously been raiding the libraries nonstop, and she never once figured any of this out yet. Eloise really bugged me because if they've been sheltered from being in town and they've been out in the country, the upper classes breed horses, they breed dogs, breed sheep for that matter, not even having a clue that these principles align to, a male and a female go off into the separate corner and then we get lambs. But no, none of that.
I think that's one of the only things that bothered me about her, though. I really do enjoy the character of Eloise, not because she's different, not because she's trying to make her own path and she just feels like she's called to greater things, because spoiler alert, if you haven't read all the series, I mean, she's gonna get her own romance novel. I just like her. She's so adorable.
She really is.
Her and Penelope. Like, I love Penelope. As a larger woman, it is nice to see, I mean, there's such a negative connotation with it, but she's a chubby woman on screen, and yet she's so pretty. Yeah, they stuff her into these god-awful dresses, and the colors clash horrendously with the tones in her skin and her hair, but she's so freaking adorable. It was nice seeing a larger woman not being the villain or the obvious villain. I still wouldn't even go as far as saying she's a villain.
Honestly, the actress is so pretty. She's so super cute, and even those awful outfits were not awful enough to make her not adorable.
Exactly.
And you're just like, why aren't dudes falling all over you? Girl's got cleavage for days and she's adorable and smart and perky.
Right, and again, we're not actually in Victorian England yet where you need the orange and a half waist. So the concept of the frumpy, like, I don't like you because you're not skinny, hasn't really developed in the way that it does later. Yeah, it makes no sense. Men aren't falling all over her.
If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, history nerds, but if I recall correctly, the Prince Regent himself had a thing for fluffy girls.
And it wasn't just Regency. There were other cultures too where the floofier you were, it was almost a status symbol. Because if you're thin, that means you can't afford to eat. You're eating very meager fare. But if you're a little bit more on the thick side, it means that you maintain a lifestyle where you're able to have these indulgences, and therefore the larger you are, more than likely, the bigger your dowry.
Literally, I'm never not going to be slightly pissed off that I'm not in Renaissance Venice.
I would be so eligible. I'm not a thin woman. I'd like to be, to a point, but if I wasn't alive now and I like that I can vote, and I like the things that women are able to do now, but like,
but every once in a while, for vanity's sake, just like, ugh.
And that's not to say that like large women can't be beautiful, because I mean, if you don't think I'm beautiful, go off. Like, I'm beautiful. Shut up. I'm just large, and it's the same with Penelope. She is so freaking beautiful. Not only is she beautiful in the face, and oh my god, I wish I had her hair, but she's just a good person. I guess there's an argument against that you can make that I'm sure we'll talk about later. Again, more spoilers coming up. Even knowing what we know, I don't think she's a bad person.
And speaking of beautiful, underutilized side characters whose underutilization makes me kind of want to set something on fire, Marina.
She is very gorgeous.
Like, upsettingly beautiful. You're not telling me that her being pregnant was going to be that big of an imposition. Especially in the Regency, there was workarounds for that.
There are workarounds for pregnancy.
I guess the book didn't really want to deal with the fact that you could get one of those. That was an option. I guess technically she did try the one time with some like old wives' tales.
And like, I was trying to look at what was in there. It's like when I saw nettle on it, I'm like, yeah, she's gonna try the tea.
Yeah, there was rue and like
juniper.
I mean, pennyroyal's almost a certain one. So if there was pennyroyal for sure on one of those labels, I don't know how it didn't happen.
But yeah, when she started mixing it all in, I was like, death. She's gonna die.
Honestly, she should have been dead, but she was luckily in a fluffy romance romance novel, so she didn't die. I hated her plotline after that because she does kind of, for her, the right thing. And maybe this is me being, again, the Song of Ice and Fire nerd. Her going after the younger Bridgerton bro made a lot of sense. She would have made him happy. I think she probably would have come to love him quite a lot.
Yeah, but then he doesn't get his own book, and that's just upsetting and not marketable.
I'm going to try not to roll my eyes out of my skull.
You did.
Know, it actually would have made sense. And especially his speech at the end, like, if you just come and told me. Part of me was like, so why aren't you just doing it to prove that if she had just come and told you, you'd have done it anyway, and you're going to do it anyway because you love her? But again, you're right. He has another book to get to, so he can't.
Well, also lies trump being knocked up, I guess. Like, you lied to me, and that means trust is broken forever.
You lied to me to save your skin and your child's skin. I'm going to never ever forgive you because deep down all the Bridgertons actually suck. I'm not really gonna forgive him for that one. Like, I get where people are coming from, like, she lied to him, blah blah blah, and I guess her ending isn't the worst, but when they literally used her story, which is actual life-threatening, catastrophic, ending up on the poor side of London as a prostitute, because that's gonna happen. That kind of drama was up against Daphne's, which is like, oh no, I won't marry the first pick of the litter. They used Marina's actual trauma to, like, give Daphne a realization about her and Hastings.
I hate Daphne, but we're going to get into that later. Again, we save the worst for last in this so that we don't, like, hit you over the head with it. I do understand what you're saying. I think watching it, I hated Marina as it went on. Not necessarily because I didn't think she was doing the right thing. I mean, obviously she wasn't if you put contemporary ethics to it. She's doing what's best for herself and her child. I thought there was a lot of stupidity involved in that, though. Like, you know you're in a hostile environment. You know you're not the first one who sees the letters. Maybe do some more digging before you write off this love of your life.
Yeah, I just had to, like, completely phase that out because, yeah, you are literally sending mail to him in the Napoleonic Wars.
Yes.
Every letter getting through is extremely unlikely. A ship could have gone down with your letter or with his return letter. Like, send 5 letters and hope one makes it to him.
When she goes, he hasn't written to me in a while, my first thought wasn't, oh, he's abandoning you and the baby. My first thought was, he's dead. You're not in a Cold War situation where you're just kind of standing across a river drinking tea and waving at your opponent. He's in an active combat area, front lines, which was said multiple times. Why would that not be your first fear? You claim to love this man, but you jump right to abandonment rather than, oh my god, he's dead.
Well, I could see hormones and her being we're going to pretend they're all like 18. Young, pregnant, hormones, uncertainty about literally everything else. Why not he just abandon me too? Because that's what society says he's going to do.
Well, I guess she did put that seed in her head.
Yeah, but the other thing is, again, with these girls, these characters, for the purpose of this drama, apparently don't look outside the windows very often. In the Napoleonic Wars, you would have had wounded, dead, maimed soldiers coming back on the regular. Marina's from the countryside. She would have known a couple boys who had already gone, and they probably would have already come back in coffins or with a I'm sorry letter from their commanding officer. Those wars went on for a very long time, and it was not a hidden factor about wounded warriors coming back. I don't know if you know what the early 1800s medicine looked like with wounds, but yeah, it wasn't great.
Either you lost a limb and died, you lost a limb and suffered your entire life, or you bled out. We're talking, like, imagine Civil War injuries and the horror story, because, I mean, I imagine most of us at least know about the Civil War, and we've all learned about the injuries people would get from that. Imagine those kinds of injuries. That's the level of brutality you're talking about. Most of the people who died in the Civil War did not die outright. They died of wounds. And that was very true for most wars, actually.
And the Civil War benefited from the pioneerings of Florence Nightingale. So you're going back like several generations before the Civil War soldiers had it good compared to the Napoleonic soldiers.
It's ugly. And as you were saying, I don't understand how they've been sheltered from so much, not just virgin expectations of romance novels, but the war.
I mean, again, I know Bridgerton's not striving for any kind of historical accuracy, but the level of just complete blinders on most of this cast.
Yeah, it makes it hard to like them. Let me make one last point about Marina. Whether he abandoned you or he died, you're in the same situation. He is not there. So regardless, you're going after the young Bridgerton. My mistake was I ascribed contemporary ethics to her, and I was like, man, I'm so mad at her. I can't believe she's doing this to someone. I think for me, though, it was the lie. But then my brain also kept going and went, well, if he thinks the baby's his, he's kind of dumb. It actually makes Colin, his character, worse. There's no way you exited the situation as anything but stupid.
And kind of selfish. So he was proclaiming how much he loved Marina. And instead of like actually thinking about what she was up against and the situation she was in, he proved he didn't actually really love her either. Her dad's already thrown her out. The Featheringtons will throw her out. She's a prostitute on Cheapside. She's dead. The baby's dead. If you're Marina, like, you are in a rock and a hard place. And it doesn't really matter even if Loverboy is going to come back or not, because whether the letter's gone astray or not, he's not getting back in time to save you from being stuck on the docks.
Daphne had really no control over whether or not Philip was going to propose. So in many ways, it was Philip who saved her, and I think he's underrated, but it's okay. Assuming Bridgerton has all 8 seasons, Philip does come back in a big way, so we'll see him again. But Philip was really the hero.
Daphne's entire story would have made an amazing book on itself, with Philip as being the love interest, and we would have had a completely different book and a completely different miniseries, but like Marina's story would have been far more interesting to me. Daphne's story.
Daphne,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, let's talk, we'll get to Daphne now.
Hey everyone, Em here. If you enjoyed what you heard, please be sure to like the video. Bridgerton Part 2 will be out very soon, and you get to hear all about what we thought of Daphne. It was just too long to fit into this video. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell to be notified when that comes out. Also, for those of you who are familiar with our Discovery of Witches videos, we are definitely planning on doing a reaction and review to Season 2, and no, this is not some cheap way for me to plug my love for Domenico, though Domenico is really great. Just saying. Anyway, thank you for listening. Hope you tune in again. Drop a comment down below to let us know what you thought of Bridgerton. And as always, have a wonderful day.